Welcome to another deep dive. Today, John Bogle. The guy who totally revolutionized investing. And honestly, he really helped millions of people take control of their financial futures. We've got tons of articles and research and all that about his life, his ideas, his impact. And it's going to be a good one, trust me. Okay, so Bogle's story. It's not all about numbers and stocks. It's really about this guy who saw how messed up the system was for the average investor, and he just decided to fight back.
It's true.
And get this, the whole way he thinks about investing came from him seeing all the devastation of the Great Depression as a kid.
Yeah, can you imagine?
Yeah.
That kind of backdrop.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to overstate the impact that the Depression had on Bogle. Seeing families just lose everything, their dreams shattered by these market crashes,
Right.
really gave him this really deep sense of empathy for the regular investor.
Yeah, it wasn't just empathy though, right? It was a desire to do something different.
Oh.
Make a system that was safer, fairer, accessible to everyone, not just, fancy Wall Street people.
Totally. And that's what's so interesting about Bogle. He didn't just talk about it. He actually did it.
Right.
Built a whole company, Vanguard. That's all about those principles.
And before we get to Vanguard, which we totally will,
Yeah.
we should go back a bit. Back to college, Princeton. Bogle's senior thesis, get this, it was basically, a giant middle finger to Wall Street.
You could say that. Yeah, that's kind of colorful.
Yeah.
But you're not wrong.
Right.
His thesis, the economic role of the investment company, basically, it challenged what everyone thought back then, that fund managers, could beat the market over and over again, consistently.
So even as a student, he was already questioning everything.
Totally.
Wow.
He argued that mutual funds, they could actually help investors way more by just matching the market, but also keeping costs super low,
Right.
which back then was a radical concept, almost unheard of.
And here's the crazy part. Most people would write that thesis, graduate, go straight to Wall Street and make tons of money. But Bogle, he spent his whole career proving his theory right.
Exactly.
And in doing that, he totally changed investing forever.
He really did. And that's the best thing about Bogle, a man of principle. He believed in his ideas.
Yeah.
He saw investing as a way to empower people, to give them control, over their own financial future.
Okay, so how do you do it? Enter Vanguard, founded by our hero, 1974. It's like David and Goliath.
I like that.
Right.
Because that's exactly what he was doing.
Yeah.
Taking on the giants with this crazy idea that investors should come first, not profits.
And his weapon of choice,
Yeah.
index funds. So tell me, what was so revolutionary about that first ever index fund? The Vanguard 500 back in 75.
It was a total game changer. Before that, regular people, they just had limited options for investing, right?
Yeah.
They could try picking stocks themselves, which most people don't have time for, or the knowledge to do it well. Or they could go with these actively managed mutual funds, which had super high fees and their performance up and down, like a roller coaster.
Got it. So index funds were like the secret weapon that gave regular people a simple way, an affordable way to ride the wave of the market.
Exactly. And it all goes back to his thesis.
Yeah.
Bogle, he was obsessed with low costs because he knew that every dollar, literally every dollar you pay in fees, it's a dollar that's not working for you.
So smart. It's like, hey, why give all your money to Wall Street?
Right.
Keep more of it for yourself.
Exactly. The Bogle way.
Yeah.
Simple, straightforward, and focused on you, the investor.
So this simple idea, track the market, don't try to beat it, totally shook things up.
It did. And it wasn't just Wall Street paying attention.
Right.
The rise of ETFs, exchange traded funds, remember?
Yeah.
That really brought Bogle's vision to everyone.
Okay, wait. So ETFs, they're kind of like index funds, but on steroids.
Well, they're like the cool younger sibling.
Okay.
But yeah, they're similar. They both track a specific index, but they trade on stock exchanges, just like any regular stock.
I see.
So you get the best of both worlds. Diversification, low costs, plus more flexibility.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so Bogle starts things off with index funds.
Yeah.
Then ETFs come along and really blow the roof off. But let's go back to Vanguard for a minute.
Okay.
There's something really unique about how it's structured. It's kind of mind-blowing, honestly.
Oh, yeah, totally. Most investment companies, how they're set up, they have these outside shareholders. They get their profits from the fees that investors pay. The system benefits the company, not the people investing.
Right. The more fees they charge, the more money the shareholders make.
Exactly.
Even if it means investors get less.
Yeah.
Right. But Bogle, with Vanguard, he flipped the script. He made something called a mutually owned structure.
Mutually owned.
What is that?
It basically means that the investors are the owners.
Wait, so if I buy a Vanguard index fund, like I own part of Vanguard.
Yep.
Wow.
It's like a co-op, but for investing.
That's wild. So it's like instead of Wall Street making money off you, you make money off yourself.
That's it. That's Bogle. He lined up the interests of the company with the interests of the investor. And honestly, that's probably the biggest reason why Vanguard's been so successful. Low-cost investments, awesome value
Yeah.
for their clients.
No conflicts of interest, low costs, and focused on the long-term success of the investor. It all makes sense now. They call him Saint Jack for a reason.
Right. He might laugh at that nickname, but he deserves it.
He does.
Because beyond the investments, Bogle was really fighting for investors' rights. He was like a thorn in the side of the financial industry, always pushing for more transparency, fairness, ethical practices,
So he didn't just want to make money easier, he wanted it to be ethical too.
Yeah, exactly. He believed that investors, they have a responsibility to think about how their investments impact the world, not just their wallets. He called it stewardship of capital.
Hold on, stewardship of capital. Sounds pretty fancy. What's that mean?
Basically, it means that investing, it's about more than just, getting rich.
Yeah.
It's about using your resources to do good, to support companies that are making the world better.
I like that. So it's like, yeah, I want to make money, but I also want to make sure my investments are doing something good.
Right.
Something I believe in.
Exactly. He was all about good corporate governance, social responsibility, long-term thinking. He wanted companies to be accountable, and he thought investors had a big role to play in making that happen.
Wow. This is deep. It's way more than just picking stocks and watching numbers go up.
It is.
It's about actually making a difference.
Yeah.
You know what? I want to hear more about this ethical investing thing.
Let's do it. Bogle had some strong opinions about how people could use their money to shape the future for the better. He really wanted investors to think beyond just the money, beyond the returns. It was about the long-term consequences, not just for your portfolio, but for like the whole world.
So like aligning your investments with your values.
Exactly. He believed you could actually use your money to support companies that were doing good, companies focused on sustainability and all that.
Yeah.
Being socially responsible, ethical business practices.
Okay, so let's say I'm into this whole ethical investing thing.
Yeah.
What would Bogle say to look for? How do you spot a company that's actually doing it, not just talking about it?
Well, he was really big on stewardship,
Okay.
basically how a company treats everyone involved.
So not just shareholders, but like employees and customers too. The
Yeah.
community, the environment, all that.
All of it. He believed that companies should be responsible to everyone, not just the people who own stock.
That makes sense. It's not just about profit, right? You got to build a business that's sustainable. Thinks about the impact on people and the planet.
Yeah, that was really at the core of what he believed. Creating value for everyone, not just taking it for a few.
So how do you measure that? Like, are there specific things investors should be looking for?
Well, Bogle, he was all about doing your homework, really researching a company's practices and policies. He wanted investors to look beyond the numbers, beyond just the financial stuff.
So like how a company treats its employees, like do they pay a living wage? Offer good benefits?
That's important for sure, but also how they act in the community. Do they support local things? Are they good for the environment?
Okay, I see. It's about the big picture, not just the money. But honestly, that sounds really complicated. Like, I'm not some financial expert. How am I supposed to know if a company is truly ethical?
That's a great question. And you're right, it can be tough to figure that out, but there are resources, to help investors make better decisions.
Okay, tell me more about that. What kind of resources are we talking about?
Well, there are groups that rate companies on their practices, environmental, social, and all that.
Oh, right. ESG.
Yeah, ESG, exactly. They take into account all sorts of things, from their carbon footprint to diversity, inclusion policies, all that.
So it's like a cheat sheet for ethical investing.
Yeah, kind of. A good starting point,
Right.
if you want to invest in line with your values.
Awesome. But let's be real for a sec. Sometimes it feels like companies just slap a label on their product like eco-friendly and call it a day. How can you tell if it's real or just greenwashing?
That's the big question, right? Greenwashing is definitely a thing. Bogle was worried about that too. He always said, look beyond the marketing hype. Look at what they're actually doing.
So don't just take their word for it. They got to prove it.
Yeah, for sure. Look for real proof, measurable goals, transparent reporting, third-party certifications, things like that.
Okay, so like, don't just tell me, show me.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Reach out to companies, engage with them, hold them accountable.
Bogle would love that. But, it's easy to get lost in the details of ethical investing, the ratings, the policies, all that. But Bogle, what I really liked about him, he never lost sight of the big picture, the human side of it all.
You're so right. He always said investing, it's not just about the numbers, it's about people. It's about helping people reach their goals, build a good future for themselves and their families.
And that's where his investment philosophy really shines. Those 5 things he always talked about: simplicity, discipline, patience, low costs, diversification, like a roadmap to building wealth that anyone can follow no matter how much money you have or how much you know about investing.
They're timeless, those principles, the foundation of good investing. Especially now with all the noise and distractions out there, people promising you'll get rich quick and all that.
Yeah, for sure. So break it down for me. Simplicity. What did Bogle actually mean by that?
Well, he believed investing should be easy, straightforward, not a bunch of complicated stuff or trying to time the market perfectly.
Keep it simple, right? Buy and hold. Don't get caught up in the hype.
Exactly. He thought the average investor could win just by investing in a mix of low-cost index funds and holding on to them for the long haul.
So it's not about being the smartest person in the room or chasing the hottest stock. It's about slow and steady wins the race.
That's the Bogle way. And that leads to his second principle, discipline.
Discipline, like sticking to your plan even when things are going crazy.
Exactly. It's easy to get emotional when the market is down. You want to panic and sell everything. But Bogle, he said, stay calm, stick to the plan, ride out the storm.
Like, don't let your emotions ruin your financial future.
Exactly. And that takes us to patience.
Patience, because building wealth is a marathon, not a sprint, right?
Exactly. Bogle was all about long-term thinking. He knew that in the short term, the market is up and down, all crazy. But over time, it tends to go up.
So don't get discouraged by the dips. Just zoom out, focus on the long term, trust the process.
That's it. And that's why low costs are so important. Bogle's fourth principle.
Low costs, because every dollar you spend on fees is a dollar that's not making you money.
Exactly. Bogle was obsessed with low fees because he knew they could really hurt your returns in the long run.
It's like death by 1,000 cuts. They might not seem like much at first, but over time, they add up. Eat into your profits.
That's why he loved index funds and ETFs. They have way lower fees than those actively managed funds.
So smart. Like he's saying, don't let Wall Street take all your money in fees.
And finally, diversification. Bogle's fifth principle.
Diversification. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Right, exactly. Spread your investments around stocks, bonds, different asset classes, reduces risk, makes things smoother.
So it's about building a strong portfolio that can handle anything.
Exactly. And the exact mix depends on you, your risk tolerance, how long you're investing for. But the idea of diversification, that's always important.
Like building a solid foundation for your financial future, one that can handle the ups and downs.
I like that. And it's amazing how those 5 principles together create such a powerful system for achieving your financial goals.
It's simple, elegant, anyone can do it. But what I really admire about Bogle, he didn't just talk about it, he lived it. Everything he did was about those principles.
It's true. He was a living example of his own philosophy. And that's why people trusted him so much. He was the real deal.
He wasn't selling a product, he was sharing a vision. And it still resonates with so many people today.
It does. And it's more relevant now than ever. With all the information overload, conflicting advice everywhere you look.
Right, because when you get down to it, Bogle's message is about taking control of your money, your future, making choices that match your values.
Building a future that's not just financially secure, but ethically sound.
And that's a legacy worth celebrating. But as much as I like Bogle's way, I gotta say, I'm a little unsure about this whole buy and hold thing. In today's market, it's so up and down.
Oh, interesting. What makes you question it in today's conditions, I mean?
Well, think about it. Technology is changing everything. Globalization, all the uncertainty in the world. The market feels like it's moving faster than ever, more unpredictable.
Yeah, I get it. Like, can we really just sit back and watch while everything's going crazy?
Exactly. It makes me wonder if Bogle's approach needs an update, a tweak for the modern investor.
That's a really good point. I mean, on one hand, his principles, the long-term thinking, low cost, diversification, they're probably more important now than ever, especially with all the volatility.
Right.
But on the other hand, maybe we need to be a little more flexible, more strategic you know.
So not just blindly buying and holding, but being more careful about what we choose, more hands-on with our portfolios.
Exactly. Finding that sweet spot
Yeah,
between Bogle's wisdom and the craziness of today's market.
that makes sense. It's like Bogle gave us the tools, but it's up to us to actually build the house and adapt to the changing weather, so to speak.
I love that. It really shows how important it is to stay informed, to keep learning and evolving as an investor.
And Bogle would agree with that for sure. He was always pushing people to read, to learn from others' experiences.
He was a learner for life. He believed knowledge was power for investors.
And speaking of learning from Bogle, there's one more thing we haven't talked about yet. His ability to explain complicated stuff so simply, even make it funny.
Oh yeah, he was a great writer and speaker. He could take the most confusing financial idea and make it easy for anyone to understand.
And he wasn't afraid to poke fun at the industry, to challenge the norms with humor and wisdom.
He was a great storyteller, and he used those stories to connect with people, inspire them, empower them.
Okay, so before we wrap this up, I gotta ask, what are some of your favorite Bogle quotes, the advice that's really stuck with you?
Well, there's one that always comes to mind. The stock market is a giant distraction to the business of investing.
Ooh, that's good. What's he getting at there?
He's basically saying we get so caught up in what's happening in the market every day. The headlines, the ups and downs, all that noise. It distracts us from the real goal, which is long-term growth.
So ignore the hype. Focus on the big picture.
Exactly. And another one I love is don't look for the needle in the haystack, just buy the haystack.
That's classic Bogle. And a perfect way to explain his love for index funds, right?
Absolutely. He's saying forget about trying to pick the perfect stock, which is almost impossible. Just invest in the whole market.
So simple and effective. And then there's this one, time is your friend, impulse is your enemy.
Yeah. Powerful stuff. It's all about patience and discipline.
Yeah, it is. He's reminding us that getting emotional about the market, it can lead to bad decisions.
Right. Bogle knew that our emotions can mess us up when it comes to money. He wanted people to control those impulses.
Take a breath, step back, remember your goals. And there's one more quote that I think really sums up his whole philosophy. Learn every day, but especially from the experiences of others. It's cheaper.
So true. And he learned from the mistakes of others, right? Like
Right.
the people who lost it all in the Depression. It shapes his whole view on investing.
It did. He wanted to create a system that was safe and fair, that everyone could access. And he did it. His legacy still helps millions of investors today. John Bogle, the people's champion of investing. It's been great diving into his story today. And now, as we wrap things up, what are your final thoughts?
That's a tough one.
Yeah, it does feel like those core principles, simplicity, discipline, patience, low costs, diversification.
Yeah.
Those seem like timeless,
They really are timeless. The
Yeah.
bedrock,
Yeah.
the foundation. But I think the real key is using them the right way
Mhm.
in a world that's, way more complicated and fast moving than back when Bogle started.
Right. So not just following the rules blindly, but really understanding the heart of his philosophy
Yeah.
and adapting it to, how things are now.
Exactly. Like take diversification. Maybe now it means thinking about global markets or new kinds of investments that didn't even exist when Bogle was around.
Right, right. And maybe even patience, it needs to evolve a bit. Still got to have that long-term view, of course,
Right.
but also be aware of the big changes, tech, geopolitics, stuff like that. That could really shake things up.
Yeah. Patience doesn't mean just sitting there doing nothing.
Right.
It's about staying informed, being able to adapt, adjusting your strategy when you need to,
Mhm.
but always keeping those core principles in mind.
And that makes me think about what you're saying earlier about ethical investing.
Yeah.
That seems like something that's super relevant today. With climate change, social justice, all that.
It really is. More and more investors are realizing, hey, I can use my money to support companies that, share my values. It's not just about the profit anymore. It's about making a difference.
So that idea of stewardship, like Bogle talked about, thinking about the bigger picture, the impact of our investments.
Yeah,
That's more important than ever.
absolutely. And it connects to those timeless principles.
Yeah.
When you invest in companies that are doing good, that are sustainable,
Right.
you're usually investing in companies that are built to last,
Yeah.
companies that are thinking long term.
So it's not just about, doing the right thing. It's also about good investing.
Exactly. And there's a lot of research now showing that companies with strong ESG practices, they actually tend to do better than others over time, of course.
That's really cool. So you don't have to choose between, doing good and making money. You can do both.
Exactly. That's the best part of Bogle's legacy. He showed us that, investing can be a force for good, a way to build a better future for everyone.
He really did make investing something that everyone can do, gave millions of people the power to control their money, their lives, and even make a difference in the world.
He was a true visionary, a maverick, and a real champion for the everyday person. His ideas will keep inspiring us for a long time to come.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So there you have it. John Bogle, the man who challenged Wall Street, empowered millions, and changed investing forever. From his regular beginnings to his huge impact on the world, it's been an amazing journey exploring his life and his thinking.
It really has. His legacy is incredible.
If you want to learn more, I highly recommend checking out his books or watching some of his interviews online. His wisdom is timeless, and his message, it's more relevant than ever in today's crazy world.
And remember what Bogle said, the greatest enemy of a good plan is the dream of a perfect plan. So start investing, stay the course, and never stop learning.
And that's a wrap on another deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep investing, and keep diving deeper.